Good evening, everybody. Sorry for the late start. We were being chatty Cathy's behind the scenes, so of course. I'm like, oh, gracious. Well, we should probably take this to the public. For those of you that don't know, I am Stephanie from Stephanie's Book Reports, and this is That's Novel. Tonight, I have with me author Lorenzo, and we are going to share with you about her, or she's going to share, rather, about her stories and what she's got going on. And if you are on the computer watching the show, there is a excuse me, it wants to sneeze. It's not coming. There's a live chat box to the right-hand side of the video screen. If you'd like to ask her a question, feel free to type it in the box, and I will read it out loud here on the show for her to answer. If you are on your phone, I think if you're on the app on the phone, there should be a live chat button, like a little circular thing that says something about live chat or something about a chat, and you just click on that button and it should take you to the chat box. And on your iPad, it's at the bottom of the screen. I haven't been able to see those from my iPad, but I do this, my screen is a little bit differently. That's what everybody else seems to say from the peanut gallery that does watch the show on a regular basis. So those are your options if you want to be in the chat room. You do have to log in to your Google account to be able to comment or chat in the chat box. I don't think they'll allow you to do so as a guest. But anyway, so all that housekeeping. Welcome, Katie. Thanks for joining me this evening.
Thanks for asking me.
We actually just met, for those of you that don't know, we just met in person at RT this year, and it was we were messaging back and forth on the phone. Where are you? Are you here? Are you still here? Where are you? Trying to meet each other in the hotel. And I think I've described this a few times on the show, like the hotel where RT was held, which is a huge book convention for publishers and authors and readers and bloggers and agents, industry people. It's a huge conference. And it was in Atlanta this year. So the hotel was ginormous, and the lobby was, well, the interior of the hotel was wide open. And so the huge lobby, and they had this bar area that had seating, and you could get food out there, and they had restaurants and Starbucks and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so we're in the bar area. I was on one side, Dee was on the other, trying to with each other and figure out where we were in the hotel. We eventually got it together, so that was kind of cool. We were, and then it was like after that, did you find this true for almost everybody you met there that you hadn't before? To me, it was like every time I had met someone, and I never met them before, we meet, and then after that it was like you turn around and they're right there. Did you have that same
experience? A few times, actually. Once we met, then we found ourselves in the same place quite a few times.
Exactly. I tripped over several authors like that. It was like every time Jodi Ellen Malthus, I had seen her, I met her for the first time at RT in the same, right around the same area, and then a couple of times afterwards, it was we were in the bathroom together. We were the whole way.
That happened to me quite a bit with Amy Jackson and her daughter Devin, and they wound up to be like one of the biggest blessings that weekend. They kind of like took me under their wing, and people that I didn't know, they were pointing them out to me to make sure that I met them. And I had gone with my editor, Connie, to RT, and some of her girls were there as well, Lucky 13. But it seemed like, of course, authors have very different networking needs than editors do. But some of the people, I think what I found the best about RT, I don't even know if you know this story, but I did not want to go to RT. I didn't. 2 days before I went to RT, I actually sat in a chair and cried that I didn't want to go because I had just lost my husband and I didn't want to make new memories without him. And my youngest daughter, um, she said, well, you received an invitation from Meredith. Do you really want to disappoint her? Well, Meredith Wild and I, long before Meredith's contract, we were sprint partners at nighttime, writing from 12 to 3. She's one of the hardest working women I think that I've ever met. And she did. She extended an invitation to go to a cocktail party. And Meredith and I had only met in person very briefly in Las Vegas. And this was an opportunity to actually interact with her and her husband, John, and her staff. And they were really, really wonderful people. And I didn't want to disappoint her. But going turned out to be the biggest blessing in my life, I have to say, especially given the last year and a half. And meeting the people in person and making the personal connections of people that were constantly messaging me and Michael, readers that sent cards and sentiments to him that didn't really even know him. And people that were constantly sending private messages and lifting us up and just checking in on us every once in a while. Meeting those people in person, it was one night, that I think it was the night after I met you, it turned out to be more than I could handle emotionally. And I was a basket case. My nose is red in a lot of the pictures. My eyes are red. There was the night that I met Jody Ellen Malpas. And it was just, Stu Reardon, who has always in my mind been my Declan in my stories, is one of the nicest men in the business. He really is. And I was friends with his assistant, Linda, before I even knew that she worked with Stu. And he, his sentiments to stop what he was doing and come over and pay his condolences. People can say what they want to say about the book world, or any world in that matter, but especially in the book world, there's so much that you see on Facebook every single day. And I've always been of the thought that you have the ability to lift each other up or rip each other up. It's a choice. And all I can tell you about RT this year for me was that every person that I connected with personally lifted me up. I didn't see any of the ripping up at all. And that, it really made me want to delve further into the world and make more personal connections instead of climbing into the hole of depression that I really wanted to be in because I had just lost Mike.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that was the second time in a couple of months that somebody threw me a rope in the quicksand that I was slipping down into. The first time was Aletha Romig. And I'll talk about that if you want to talk about Kindle Worlds. I could tell you about
Sure. Let me first mention, if you have never read anything by Dee Dee or heard of her, we do have her her information here on the page. I'm sorry, it really wants to sneeze. It's not gonna come out. And like the third, I think it's the third link down is to her Amazon author page. So if you want to go, you click on that, you can go to her Amazon author page so you can see all of her stories. She has quite a few, and we'll talk about those as well. But there is we've kind of touched a little bit about Kindle Worlds here on the show. This is a little bit different. I think it's still only available in the United States. Excuse me, is that right? Only U.S. readers can purchase, or available for U.S. readers.
There is a way. I can't remember. I think it has something to do with changing your settings, but I'm sure that anybody that is tech savvy can tell you how you can get one. And I'm not sure if you gift one to someone, if they're able to get it on their Kindle. That may be a possibility as well. But like I said, I'm not tech savvy at all. So I would check with somebody that has a lot more knowledge than I do.
All right, because you might have to, if you live in the UK or any other English speaking place, maybe have to change your device and everything to say that you are in the United States somehow. So that's a lot of work because then you got to change it back and
Right. But I think there's a way that people do it. I guess there's always a way around it.
yes. So Aletha Rummick has her own Kindle world. It is built around one of her series, and so what in a Kindle world? Well, you can kind of explain this too.
Okay. Well, Aletha's Kindle world is based on her Infidelity series, but the Kindle world itself is called the Fidelity Kindle world. And I can only tell you from being invited as a participant's point of view. So if you're the person that created the Kindle world, of course, she would be a great person to, interview. But I had just lost my husband in November, and right after our wedding anniversary. And I was trying to get my family through the first holidays without him. January, once January 2nd hit, I had to get away. And I'm not sure if that was such a good thing or not. I wanted to, but once I was away, I started doing like things that probably weren't very healthy, like watching P.S. I Love You at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then forgetting until you watch the movie that the girl's husband died of a brain tumor and my husband had brain cancer. So I'm sitting there like crying in my drinks, and it was a mess. Well, I started kind of spiraling down and was becoming like I didn't want to do anything except sleep. And Aletha had messaged me and told me that she had a Kindle World coming up. And Aletha has been a wonderful mentor for me. I cannot say enough about her. She has become a friend. She is a very high caliber woman. She is extremely professional, and she is very indie friendly. If you have a question and she knows the answer, she is not afraid to share information with you, as most of the mentors that I have in this indie world. But she had messaged and said that she was going to have a Kindle World, and she had invited several authors to participate in it, and she wanted me to participate in it. But when she invited them, it was around the 1st of December, and I had just lost Mike. And she wasn't sure if that was the right time, but she said she really felt like she wanted me to participate. So she was going to put it out there to me and let me decide if I wanted to participate. And because it was Aletha, and because she is my friend, the same as it was with Meredith, I didn't want to disappoint her. And I said, okay, thank you for inviting me. And she said, well, you have to write at least a novella and have it completed, edited, covered, everything within a few weeks. And I said, oh, okay. And then I got off the phone and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? Because I thought, how am I going to do this? I couldn't even hold a collective thought in my head. It hadn't even been 3 months since I lost Michael. So, but it was kind of the kick in the pants that I needed. And because I didn't want to disappoint her, I really had to start focusing on something else, and other than my own pain. And a lot of the rules in Kindle Worlds, if for these people that are considering participating in Kindle Worlds, there are certain rules. You can write about secondary characters or tertiary characters of the original series, but you cannot go beyond the original author's timeline. You cannot write about primary characters, and you cannot change the outcomes of their stories. So what I decided to do was, I was hoping that this one particular character that I fell in love with in the series, that no one had picked him to write about. And for those of you that are watching that know Aletha's Infidelity series, the character that I wrote about was Patrick, and that was the main character's cousin. And I wanted to write his prequel because he was a character in her story that was gay, who had found love. He was a very happy-go-lucky guy. And that's not that for me. In my instance, my son is gay, and I know that people just aren't always happy-go-lucky. There's a lot of pain that people go through. And I had been a bullied child, and I know what bullying feels like. And I wanted to show the transition between him wanting to be what everyone else wanted him to be and finding himself as a person. And in that short period of time, it gave me that ability to interview people, not only just from my own experience or my family's experience, but other people that I knew and loved and cared about, that I could hear what their stories were. And I took all of that and the bullying experiences that I had had myself and poured it all into Patrick's story. It catapulted me out of grief. It was, if you're participating in a Kindle World so that you can become a millionaire, chances are it's not going to happen. But for a lot of new authors, I was not a new author, but for a lot of new authors, it is definitely the way to break yourself into the industry, to dip your toe in the water, so to speak. If it is, I would suggest this. I have been approached about writing in other Kindle Worlds that I am not familiar with the author's work. From an integrity standpoint, I would say, if you want to write in a Kindle World, make sure that it is an author that you have read. Don't just make up a story and take names out and put them in. Make sure that the story that you're writing is a story that is going to complement that original author's hard work, because it is not just your name that you're putting on the book. You're also pulling them into it as well. And most people that are asked by Amazon to have a Kindle World are very well-respected authors. So I would say to extend that same courtesy. If Amazon thinks that they're well-respected, then you should respect that author's work as well. But it's a great way to dip your toe in it. And that author, that original author, usually will make themselves available to answer any questions that you have. So if you're scared about self-publishing, it's a great way to get into it. So there, I'm off my soapbox about Kindle Worlds.
It is a good way. I mean, it's short, like it's only 20,000 words, so it's not like, I mean, not only, but 20,000 words you can do relatively quickly and tell a good story. It might be fast, but still, it's just cut out a lot of the details.
Anything over, well, and in Kindle, Amazon Kindle prices it accordingly. It's between 10,000 and I think 20,000 words, it's one price, and then it goes up. The more word count that there is, that's how they price it. It is not your work. I also want to mention that when you publish in a Kindle World, you are considered a traditionally published author. Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize that, and I'm not quite sure that any of my fellow authors in Aletha's Kindle World were aware of that until she made us aware of that. So actually, we were both indie authors and traditionally published the day that went live. So that also makes you feel like you have a little feather in your cap, that you have a little bit of both worlds there.
Yes, because it is published through Amazon only, and it's only available, there, only, and published through them.
Yes.
It makes it a little bit, it's kind of cool that it has that double aspect. I mean,
it is.
You wrote it. They didn't have anything to do with it other than to publish it. And you'd still get that little bit of experience from like somewhat of a traditional, even though it's not the same as traditional publishing per se. No, it's indie publishing, but
of course you would speak to that more than I would as far as traditionally published. But but it was nice to know that once Amazon, it was their imprint. So because it was their imprint, then you were considered traditionally published. And I guess maybe for some people that doesn't mean anything. To me, it meant a lot. I mean, I felt like I'd gotten a little merit badge afterwards, just hearing that, Yeah.
Yes. It's helpful. And then it looks like you have experience too for authors that are looking for that. My friend Donna is having issues connecting, so that's why I keep looking at my phone, because she's having the YouTube app apparently isn't showing the thing. I don't know, she's having issues. So hopefully everybody else is all right. But it's showing on my end, so hopefully we're just, she's just having it. Hopefully it's just her having issues. Sorry, Donna. Yes. Well, traditionally with traditional publishers, they do the editing, they do the cover design, they do some of the marketing. So you really just write story and you work on the edits and then you do your marketing. You don't have a whole lot of say in anything else much,
But I guess that's how they created hybrid authors.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of creative control, and the publisher got a benefit out of it as well. They didn't have to do as much work.
Yes, exactly. Which benefits both parties. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think Kindle Worlds is really great because they have it's interesting to me how many different creativities come together. I have an author that's writing an alien story for a Navy SEAL.
Yes.
Kindle World. And it's just kind of interesting how, you can be kind of creative. Some worlds are totally vastly different.
And it's very interesting that how many different people participate in a Kindle World. You can have everyone from a New York Times, Wall Street Journal author participate in it, all the way to someone who is just publishing their absolutely first story ever. And they're so, concerned about how it's going to be received. And once you publish in the Kindle World, the same people that see that New York Times, Wall Street Journal author, they see your books also. Mm-hmm. So, it does I don't want to say that it equals the playing field, but it more equalizes it. Because of course that well-known author, their readership is going to flock to buy their book. But that same readership that goes to flock that book is going to see your name listed in the same Kindle World as they are. So it kind of balances the scales a little bit more, I think, which in my opinion, the indie world is anybody can write. Anybody that has a story to tell can write. Whether or not you do it well or how well you market or what, you're gonna reap what you sow, I think, in the business, a lot of it.
Yes, that's true. Very true. And do you have that, Jeff? Did you say you have Indiscretion in paperback?
Indiscretion is this little novella, and what Kindle Worlds will let you do is they let you print a certain number of them, but you cannot sell them. You can use them for promotional reasons only. There are some people that I've seen at signings who have participated that will give theirs away. What I've chosen to do with mine, there are a lot of auctions that happen online for different causes. MJ Carnels comes to mind that she does that cancer, the one that raises money for cancer once a month. I've participated in that several times, but because it is a limited edition book, it is definitely something that you want to use as a marketing tool or to promote the cause that you're trying to participate in. I could never have sold this book, but this teeny tiny little book, somebody bid and won for $50. Of course, MJ and I laughed about it because it said that it was going to John Grisham. We're not really sure if it was John Grisham's, like maybe his assistant or something, but that was who won it, was John Grisham. But I mean, where else can you raise $50 for something? But the people knowing that it was a limited edition, I think, made it a little bit better. And I didn't sell it. It was used to promote a cause. And of course, it promoted the Kindle World too. But, and then there are other people that use them as marketing tools, like to get people to sign up for their newsletter or whatever. But the bottom line is you can only print a certain number and you cannot sell them. So if somebody's selling their Kindle World paperbacks, back away.
Right. It's against the rules, people.
Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't realize that they were allowed to have, that y'all were allowed to have paperbacks. I'll have to make sure.
Yes.
They can get, I mean, they might already know that they can have a few. I'm sorry. When I sit in the chair, my shirt gets all bunched up and it rides up over my computer and I'll fidget all night long. I
like your shirt. It's the Authors in the City shirt.
Thank you. It is. This is our volunteer shirt from 2 years ago. Yes, this is our volunteer shirt from 2 years ago. Not the Raleigh signing. This was our Florida signing. The Raleigh one, this is pink. For the blog pink. But this is and then on the back of the shirt it has the Stephanie's Book Reports logo, the old one. It's on the back, so it's a double. You get double the advertisement. Yeah. So I get everybody else's is short sleeves, and I get long sleeve ones because I don't wear short sleeve shirts anymore. And so I always they laugh at me because, of course, I remind them every year, you have to get me a long sleeve shirt, and then the rest of them can be short sleeves because I just don't do. One, I'm always freezing. Conference centers, I don't care where it is in the world, I am always freezing in a conference center because they have the air conditioning on like 20. I don't know. It's cold. And I'm inside more than I'm outside, so I wear long sleeves all the time. And I'm just always freezing. So, and if I go outside with short sleeves on a lot, my arms, especially during pollen season, my allergies are so bad that I'll start like scratching the dickens on my arms because the pollen, it irritates them and turns them red, and I'll just wear long sleeves and I want to wear that.
You're further
long sleeves, long pants. Everybody makes fun of me, but
no, I don't think that's
my friends are always teasing me. My best friend's daughter always gives me a hard time about it. You are wearing, you're like, if I ever once show up with short sleeves on or something, just by chance, if I randomly have it, she's like, what? So anyhow, they give me a hard time, but that's okay because I don't have to worry about the sun. I don't have to. My daughter, I had my sleeve pulled up the other day, and I put my arm up against my daughter's, and she is a water bug. That child. I will ask that question in just a second. I think your family is asking a question over here. I put my arm up next to my daughter's, and she had a tan. I do not. I'm like, look, you're darker than I am.
Oh yeah, that happens with me all the time.
She's a water bug. So Megan is she says Delaney would like to know what inspired Dee Dee to write.
Oh my gosh.
Now you're really gonna get it.
Hi, Delaney. As a child, I was inspired twice, actually. Once as a child, I loved to read, just loved to read. I was able to go places and do things through the pages of a book that I would never have had the courage to do as a child. And I was in the first grade, and I read this book to the class when one of the nuns had to step out, and she told me to read a book, and I had a book called Go Dog Go by P.D. Eastman. And after I read it to the class, I remember that night thinking, I could write a book like that. And I was only 6. And I thought, well, I'm going to write about what my favorite things are. And I wrote a book called I Like All Things Pink. And it was flowers and sweaters, and it was done in a composition book. But then when I was in high school, I started writing again, and some of my teachers, they really encouraged me. And my mother was going to send some of my stories to a publisher, and at that time, again, it was a fear factor. They were my stories, my characters, they were my people, and I was afraid that somebody was going to criticize them. So when she said she was going to send them to the publisher, I threw the whole box of stories out. She'll never
Oh
forgive me
no.
for that. She'll never forgive me for that.
Oh no.
And then several years ago, I had been diagnosed with something and spent about 3 months in a chair. And my oldest daughter said, maybe you should start reading again. You used to read all the time. And my mother said, no, I think she should start writing again. And at the time, I had a little blog. It's probably still on Facebook somewhere because I can't even remember the password to get in, but it was called the B&B Book Review. And it stood for books and booze, because every time we talked about books, we were drinking wine. So I had written a blog post about Rain Miller, who was also a wonderful mentor, and loved every one of her stories, and saw how she wove her contemporary romances in with her historical romance. And then I happened upon, God help me, the book that changed me forever, Aletha Roming's Consequences. And I remember reading, this is the God's honest truth, I remember reading the first chapter and thinking to myself, what the hell am I reading? What is this? But I was so horrified that this poor girl had woken up in this room. And normally it would be the kind of thing that you would back away, because it was horrific to me, except that I felt compelled. I needed to know what happened. And then it then went on. I wrote a blog post about hers too. And Aletha and Rain were actually the two people that encouraged me to write because of the blog post that they had seen. But then, of course, it just snowballed, because then I started texting Aletha or messaging Aletha, and she would message me back. And this was the year that Consequences really blew up. I mean, it just took off. And Aletha will tell you, like, the first year she had it out, there were several hundred that were sold. And I remember she said to me, I was convinced that, it was her word, she said, I was convinced that everybody that bought one knew my mother. But after that, it was like, I met her in Vegas, and she was such an encouragement about writing, and Rain Miller was as well. Both of them, I guess maybe they saw a little potential in the blog post. And then when they asked me if I had ever written, and I said I had, they encouraged me to do it, because the indie market was really kind of open at that time. I mean, we're talking like 2013, 2014. So I did, and I published. My stories were always people, they were always characters that kind of lived inside of me, and I saw inspiration everywhere, which I guess almost every author would tell you that. They could see something happening in the grocery store and it'll spawn a story. I mean, look at Alessandra Torre with Hollywood Dirt, part of that is about the Coca-Cola millionaires. And, it's, how do you come up with a story? It just, if you have that inside of your head.
Mm-hmm. And she's from a small town, so
Yeah,
to combine the two there.
So I will say that there are some people that would give up very easily, and maybe I would have, but I did publish. I actually published 4 books, but they weren't what I wanted them to be. And I have a lot of perfectionistic tendencies, and I know that there is no perfection, and I know that you always feel like you can improve upon your work. It doesn't matter how many times you read it, you feel like you could have done something differently. But those particular books that were out, the story was good, but the writing was not. And I'll be the first person to admit it. The points of view needed to be tightened up. Aletha was very encouraging on that. She was not critical. She was encouraging. You have to be a person in this industry that can take constructive criticism. If you can't take constructive criticism, I'm not talking about the kind of people that get on Facebook and trash your work.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about are, if you have something, if it's your work and you know that there's something about it that bothers you, and you read 10 reviews and people say the same thing that you were thinking, which is what happened in my case, I wouldn't recommend this for everybody, but I pulled my books off the market. I thought that my readers, the ones that read the stories and said that they loved the stories, they deserved a better constructed story. And those readers that I hadn't yet met deserved something better. And so it was my choice. I pulled all 4 of them off of the market. My plan was to get them back on the market last year. And then my husband was diagnosed with brain cancer. And as much as I loved the book world, I loved my husband more. So I put my books aside. I couldn't think. It was very difficult to concentrate. So what I did while he was going through treatment was I took online classes. And I think that the day that you think you know everything about this industry or any other industry is the day you go stagnant. There's always something to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put out the first book again several months ago. The second book is getting ready to be released in September. The first book is pretty positive negativity. The second book is called Selective Memory, and it's the conclusion of positive negativity. The other 3 books that are in the series are standalone stories about characters that were introduced in the first 2 books. And there is a protagonist in there. I do have a villainess, and everybody wants to see her get hers. And I promise the last book, the 5th book, is called Beauty is a Bitch, and it is all about her. So those people that love to hate Marisol, she will get her own story. And then I also have I have 2 other stories planned that are outside of the series. I'm hoping that the series will be releasing, like September will be Selective Memory. I'm hoping that December will be Here Now, which is the 3rd. By March, Same Difference will be out, and then Beauty is a Bitch will be out 3 months after that. So I'm hoping for that timeline.
Hey, so they'll all be available for authors in the city.
They all will be available, yes, by summer. But, you know, my readers, they're really, really faithful people. Once you have a group of readers that love your story, they forgive you some things. But, you know, I think I said this to you before in a conversation. Everybody talks about how wonderful Nordstrom's is because they have great customer service. Vilma Gonzalez, it's all her fault that I have a Nordstrom's credit card. But that's the one thing that people remember about Nordstrom's is they have high quality and great customer service. That's what I want my books to be known as. I want my books to be high quality or the best quality I could produce at that time. And the customer service is on my end. My readers are my customers. They deserved the best that I could put out. And what I originally put out was not the best, but I was new in the indie book world. And one of the women that works with you on Stephanie's book reports, Virginia, Carrie,
Mm-hmm.
I said to her one night, I'm just not happy with them. And it was like it was one of Oprah's light bulb moments, but it came from Virginia. And she said, then take them off the market. They're your books. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I have complete control over these. Just because they're out there doesn't mean that they have to stay out there. If you think you can build a better car, you take the one that's flawed off the market and build a better car.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like the original stories, although the storyline was good, the construction of them was flawed. So I pulled them off the market. I took classes and I asked the successful people what they thought I could do better about it. And these were people that I admired in the business. So I would caution anyone that is in this business, whether it's a blogger or a writer or a reader, if you're reading a book and it's not what you want, then don't finish it. Pick up another book. There are hundreds out there, if not thousands. Something's going to appeal to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, thousands.
Yes.
Thousands. And multiple sales outlets too. There was one of my authors today, I think last night today, she had a survey like, where do you buy your books? And I buy books from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and iTunes. You know, like, because you can't. There are some books that I can't get. There are some books that you can only get on Amazon. There are some books that you can't get on Amazon, and there are some that are cheaper on the other two because the author either ran a sale on, did just a specific iTunes sale, or those kind of things. So.
And although Amazon has the biggest platform, they are not the end-all be-all. Amazon, one of the things at one of the conferences that struck me, I will say this much, iBooks, Barnes & Nobles, several of the others, they cater specifically to the book world. So keep in mind that even though Amazon is a platform that you can purchase from, Amazon sells other things other than books. So their focus is going to be more on the sales than the book.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that some of the others, as much as I admire Jeff Bezos and Amazon and all the things that he's built, there are other platforms that are much more author friendly, and they will do a lot for you. All you have to do is reach out to them and ask them, what can you do for me or help me to promote my book? So Amazon, they, just like anything else, they just aren't the only answer out there. But exactly. I do sell the books on Amazon.
Yes, well, it is the #1 retailer, especially for books. It is the #1 retailer, with iBooks following behind that, and then Barnes & Noble and Kobo after that. It's and those are last year's numbers. It's not like that's far off. I mean, the report I was looking at the other day, last year, I think that Amazon sold over 400 and some odd billion dollars in books, and then iTunes was next with 44 billion.
Wow.
So there's a huge difference there. However, there's a little bit of a difference.
I think it's,
but like I said, it's not the only entity, and they don't just concentrate on books. So there's it's a lot. It's
purchasing your groceries or your washing machine off of Amazon, the ads are going to pop up for books, and that's where it all comes from. They cross promote,
yes, and that's like a multi-level marketing right there, because you have all different things meshed into one. They also bought this, they also bought this, they also bought this. It's they have a great marketing.
They do.
Not necessarily a scheme over there, but they have a great marketing program.
Yes, they do.
In itself. So
they do. And there are some people in this indie world too that they're so gifted at marketing. I am not one of them.
It is a hard beast, and to crack into it, it's and like you said, it's not the same as it was in 2013. I mean, even as a blogger who's been blogging since 2013, it was much easier for us to be seen. Sorry, I'm moving my laptop around. It was much easier for us to be seen in 2013 as well, whereas now there's like a million blogs, just like there's a million authors, it feels like. And, you have to be up on top of things in order to get seen and get your reviews looked at and whatever. I mean, it is hard. It's hard because when social media is, oof.
And Amazon algorithms too. It's like they don't pick you up until you have a certain amount of reviews. It takes for somebody who the question for Megan was about what inspires me to write or what inspired me to write. I am a hopeless romantic, so I will always write about romance stories no matter where they come from. But it takes a lot of the romance out of it when you are not gifted at marketing and you're trying to do it. So I think the best thing to do is talk to those people that are good at marketing. Um, my editor tells me all the time, you know, it's not for me to micromanage. She can't write the words. She always says to me, it's your job to write the words. Just write the words. It's not a good use of your time to try to figure this out. Now, I question that a little bit. I think that if it's your business, you should know a little bit about your business. But if you really and truly know that you're not gifted in an area, then seek out good people. It's a very wide open field. Ask those people that you respect in the industry, especially if they are like yourself with bloggers, Vilma, whatever. You two and several others, I'm sure if someone came to you and said, I really suck at marketing, can you recommend someone? You're not going to recommend somebody that's not a decent caliber person,
Mm-hmm.
because that's your reputation. You're the one that's referring them. So, it's there's room at the table for everyone. I could no more create a cover. I could sit down and try to draw one, but there are people that are gifted at that. There are people that are gifted at formatting. And that's, I think, what the luxury of this business is. You actually get to see samples of other people's work. It's not always under the control of a publisher, which makes yours look a little more unique and different. And the same with the signings. It's you go and people present them differently. They're all different. I've had a really good time in every one of them this year, though. I do have to say that. If you would have asked me this time last year, if I would never have imagined that I would have done as much traveling as I did this year, especially after the meltdown I had before RT. But it it's been a really good thing. This book world has been very kind to me this year, and I'm I hope that with my stories I can only give back a portion of what they've given to me.
Yes. Well, I'll be teary-eyed. I'm like, I'm glad I have tissues right beside my chair
I
here.
know.
Uh,
It's the
to
truth.
me at RT too, we were both
We were,
teary-eyed at RT.
we were. I think it was an amazing. It's been an amazing year. I'm getting ready to leave tomorrow for Vegas to do authors, books, and poker chips. And then in what are we, August? In September, I'm going to be doing Tempted and Tantalizing in Staten Island, New York, and then Authors in Big Columbia in November. And I'm not doing any more the rest of the year. In November of last year, if you would have told me that I would have traveled to all these places and met all these people and um, been invited to participate, I'm participating actually in a secret project with Samantha Cohen about 11 other authors who have, it may be a little bit more than that now, who we decided that we wanted to do something for all of our readers, that we were going to participate in something like that, to be invited to participate in something like that. I I think that you should always try to pay it forward, and I have specifically made it my goal this year when I did go to the signings to meet and um, cultivate relationships with people that I thought gave back to this community. Um, if you're always taking from it, then there's nothing left at the end of the day. But if you give back to it, then those people that come behind you are only going to benefit as well. So I would particularly like to stay aligned with those people and meet more that are like minded like that, because I think the ones that are only self serving, they will fall by the wayside. They will not last long because it will never be enough for them. And if you go into writing thinking that you're going to be a multimillionaire, it's not going to be enough for you. It has to feed your soul. It's got to feed your heart. Because if it feeds you and it makes you cry or it makes you feel good, it's going to make your readers feel the same way. And you have to ask yourself if you want just people to buy your book or if you want people to really read your stories and feel your stories. And I would like to think that the things that Mike and I went through, that a little thread of the life that we shared together would find its way into every one of my stories. If people could feel a tiny little bit of the magic that he gave to me in my lifetime, um, then it will be well worth picking up my book to read. I hope that they'll find that. They'll find that little seed in there somewhere because it's in there. I promise. For
Yep,
everyone.
exactly. Yes, see, tears, tears, emotions.
Well,
Yes, but as you're talking, your philosophies there remind me a lot of Michelle Layton. I don't know if you know Michelle or if you're
she,
friends with Michelle,
I
but
do. She talked to me when Mike was sick. She's That's what I mean. It's where else can you find people like this that you don't know that connect with you? You know, Katie Ashley. I don't know if you know, but Mike had glioblastoma, which is there. I was told by the doctor that there were 165 different brain cancers, and Mike had the most aggressive and the most deadly one. And I struggled with putting that on Facebook. I composed that Facebook message probably 3 different times and got his approval before I put it on there because I knew that I wasn't going to be on Facebook for a little bit of time. I needed to focus on something that was much more important. And Katie Ashley was one of the first people that reached out to me and told me that her mom had passed away from glioblastoma. Katie and I only knew each other from the Facebook world, but she, so dear, and her little Olivia is just
they're
so
fantastic.
precious.
Mhm.
But it was those women, Katie Ashley, Rain Miller, Gretchen De La O, and Rain Miller had. There was this like private little group, and I can remember nights in the hospital where I was afraid to fall asleep because I was afraid that he was going to slip away while I was asleep. And because they were all on different time zones, I could post in there that I was really struggling that night, and it was like within a matter of moments. You know, it might be night or 45 minutes the next, but they would just reach out to me and say, "It's okay, we got you. We're saying a prayer for you. We're saying a prayer for him. Um, don't It's okay, babe. Stuff like that." Um, Again, women have the power to lift each other up or rip each other up. It's a choice, and I have been extremely blessed to have been touched by some of the just wonderful women in this book world. Um,
Yes, more tears. We're gonna get through this eventually. The tears, the
yeah.
tears.
But, I think that maybe it was fortuitous that it was supposed to be mentioned tonight because there's sometimes so much hacking that goes on Facebook in the book world. You can get on and they're chopping one person up or down. And I would much rather share even though, people may think that my love story had a tragic end, but it didn't. I mean, I was blessed to have a love that most people only dream about.
Right.
And out of that, look at the friendships that I've been able to cultivate. And you can only consider that a blessing. You have to either look at the glass half full or half empty. And I think that my half full glass has been I've really been blessed in this past year. I really have. Um, Although I don't get me wrong, I would give all of it away for one more day with him, all of it. But I would like to think that he's still around me, that he's still watching over me, and that he's still bringing good people to surround me. And if there was any way that Michael could do that, he has brought some wonderful people into my life this year.
I'll need like 10 tissues by the time we're done with this. It's been an emotional day for me today already. So I just knew that it was going to be, tonight was going to be the same. Sorry. Well, and one of the things that I bring up Michelle a while ago, because since her daddy died, she's had a hard time writing about romance. And so it's amazing all in itself that whereas your romance story, your personal story had an ending, you can still carry it forward and in your words.
I am. The life that I had with Mike was just like everybody else's. It had ups and downs and ins and outs, and we struggled and we had fun. But when you have that kind of a relationship for as long as we did, you could spend a lifetime spinning stories about that and still not have enough time to write them all. And I intend to do that. He had left a letter that he wanted me to read when we scattered some of his ashes. And one of the things that he said in that letter was that he wanted me to continue writing, that he believed in my stories. And one of my favorite pictures of him is reading one of my stories. And the only thing that Mike ever read were computer manuals and car manuals. And here he's right. And here he's reading one of my stories. And I was so nervous. But when he was finished, he said, I really think you should do this. I really think there's something there. And, it touches me that he was going through what he was going through. And he wrote that letter towards the end of his life. When you would think that someone would be completely self-absorbed about what they were going through, for them to say to you that they believed in something you were doing and they wanted you to continue doing it. I mean, how can you not try? How can you not put your best forward? I would like to think that I am doing my best work now, and I'm hoping that tomorrow I'll do even better work. And a year from now, I'll be doing even better than that.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to start somewhere. And for me, even though it started in the first grade, it didn't really become a compulsion until I had a love story to tell. And then I found ways to tell it through characters and in different ways. And every one of them is flawed. Every one of my characters has a flaw. But doesn't everybody?
Right. Yes. Yes. And you get, practice makes perfect, right? So, I mean, you're only going to get, it's like fine wine. You're only going to get better with as much as you do, or with the age. Not necessarily with age as in a person, but the more you write, the more mature your writing becomes, or it's supposed to be.
I would like to think that I'm a better writer today than I was in 2013. And when 2020 comes around, I'd like to think that I'm going to be a better writer then than I am now. So I'm just going to keep on pushing forward and continue to take the classes, because I think that there is always something to learn. I read in Stephen King's One Writing, which I love that book, but he said the best writers read. So when I'm not writing a story, I'm reading a story. There are some authors that I want to emulate, the way that they structure sentences, the poetic way that they describe something. I want to be more like them. And the way to be more like them is to continue to read works like theirs and their work. Just like every other reader, I wait with bated breath for my favorite author's next book to come out. So, I know that a lot of times in this industry, there are some, what I would say are savants. There are some people that can write 10,000 words in a day. I am not one of them. I might write, 2,000 words a day, and then I'll go back and revisit those 2,000 words to see if I can revise them. And I know I shouldn't do that. And I'm learning that so much from Alessandra. But I do know that there's always a story out there. There's a story to tell. And there's no possible way that we writers can write as fast as readers read. No way. So, people once you find a writer that you like in a genre that you like, there are usually 50 more that write similar style stories. And they may not structure them the same way, but if everybody wrote a story exactly the same way, it would be very boring to read the story.
No,
So
I would want to read
a chance on a new author, I know I've read probably 5 new authors to me in the last 7 months, and have been pleasantly surprised with some of the new works that I've read. And I will definitely they will become favorites of mine, that I'll be looking for their stories. And then of course I fangirl too when I go to the signings and I get to meet somebody that I really love. I'm very jealous that Aletha has met Pepper Winters. I'm jealous of anyone that has met Pepper.
Another trip. You can go to New Zealand.
I know. I'm thinking, there were a few ladies that came to Baltimore from Australia, so I'm thinking, okay, it's a goal, it's a goal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there is somebody that's doing a signing in New Zealand. 2018, 2019. I don't remember who it is, but there's somebody that's doing it. I'm like, hello. That's a ways away. I mean, that's a little far to go, but I mean, there are, and there's the Gold Coast one too in Australia. I don't know if she goes there a lot, but I think she comes to California some for the, she's in the Authors in the OC, I think, signing before, that's in Orange County, California.
She's one of the, she and Aletha, I think, usually make me have my heart in my throat when I read their books, but I am compelled to finish them. It's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then I have to read to find out what happens. But they were both very gifted writers.
People are probably, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I've never read Aletha. And I didn't finish the one book of Pepper's that I tried to read.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to get crucified.
There are times, her books can be very dark, but I think I look at them from a different perspective than like the normal reader would as far as the story goes. I read her books and I just think, oh my gosh, I would never have thought to describe it like that. That's what I mean about always wanting to be a better writer.
Mm-hmm.
You think about it, and then I'll give away one of my little secrets. No matter what book I read, no matter who I read, if there is something that I admire about the way that they've written something, I have a notebook when I'm writing, and I will try to write that same sentence or phrase 5 different ways. It's like an exercise for me. You think of something and it's like a light bulb moment. You're like, oh, I would never have thought of describing it that way. Okay, so how else could you describe that? And I will try to write 5 other ways to describe that exact same phrase or that exact same sentiment. And I think that helps you to become a better writer as well. Because, of course, if it's someone that you admire greatly, then you would want to emulate them in some way. And but you don't want to plagiarize. So I think it's a good exercise for your brain to do that, to make yourself think in a different way.
Oh yes, most definitely. And it's hard, like thinking of different descriptions and I feel like this thing makes me look blue. I keep looking at myself like, am I blue? It's weird. Maybe it's the lighting. I'm wearing a black shirt. I feel like I'm blue. Anyway, I'm a Smurf. I always with my authors, I've given suggestions on different, wording they can use, different, this different description things, and make sure you check look it up on a thesaurus or do something different, because it is hard. And if people use the same stuff over and over again, it's like, really, and I read a lot of contemporary romance. It's not my favorite, but for the blog, that's what we get the most requests for. So I read a lot of contemporary romance. I mean, not that I don't enjoy it. I enjoy it. It's just not my favorite. Paranormal romance is my favorite. My favorite paranormal author, her descriptions, I can read her books and it plays like a movie in my head as I'm reading the book. I can totally imagine these characters. I know what they're supposed to look like. I mean, it helps. Let me see. I'm going to unplug myself. And I'm going to carry you with me. Let's put the space together here. My friends bought me. She has her novels are coming graphic novels or comics, I guess some people want to say. They come in graphic novels. And they bought me one. And so you can see what her characters look like. Now, if I could just find the novel here on my bookshelf so that I can show you, but where is it? It's the coolest thing. So you can kind of see what her characters look like, but then where is this book? You'd think I'd be a little bit more organized here with where stuff is. It's huge. So I'm just looking at my shelf. Oh, here it is. On the bottom shelf, Stephanie. I haven't talked about Laurel in a while on the show, I don't think.
Are you walking with your laptop?
Yes, I'm rocking around with my laptop. These are my bookshelves.
No. That's kind of cool. So does she have... I can see it. Oh, so it's kind of like a comic book as well?
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is done by Marvel.
Wow.
But hers are done, so this is her main, in this series, this is her main character, Anita Blake. And this is her best friend. And she is the executioner and he is death.
Okay.
For vampires.
A happy story.
For vampires. Yeah, well, she's a necromancer and he is just a vampire hunter. And the vampires call her the executioner and him death. Because when you come across these two, they're not, if you've been bad, they're not going to let you live.
Okay, then.
Well, this, I don't know why she's got her looking like, I don't know. On the front here, she's a lot more tan, but maybe it's because she's standing next to Jean-Claude. So this is her vampire lover, and this is her. He's like pale, because he's like 400 plus years old. He's white as a ghost, and then she is half Hispanic. So she looks a lot darker there than she does, I guess, on the back of the book. But for these little things, this one is it's kind of cool. She signed it. It's a signed. Donna and Lori gave me this. That's a zombie. She's a necromancer. Okay. So she can raise people from the dead. That's a zombie. And but it's just kind of cool to look through here. But even still, without even this graphic novel, being, just seeing these people, kind of, you can see, you would know exactly. If I saw this without knowing that that's Anita and this is Jean-Claude, and, this is Anita and Death, and I can't remember what his in my head, but that's pretty bad. That I can't remember his name. I always forget. Let me see. There's a page. Edward. Well, how can I forget that?
Yeah.
But he goes by
All those Twilight.
Yes. Well, he goes by Edward or he goes by Ted, depending on what character he's playing at the moment in the book. Because there's his independent side, and then there's his professional side. His independent side, he's Edward. The side, he's Ted. And this is funny. She gives him a hard time about that. It was the first time she ever hears him being called Ted. She's like, "Is Ted short for Theodore?" You know, which is Edward is a nickname for, you know. And he's like, just looks at her. You know, like if looks could kill, he would definitely have given her enough of those. It's just funny their relationship. But even, you know, before I got that, they gave me that as a present that I could tell you who those characters are just by looking at it, because her description in this novel is just so vivid, you know, in her stories. They just tell you completely, you can totally figure out who's who just because she is so vivid in her description. I get it, like trying to figure out different ways to say things without saying the same thing over and over again. Yeah. Tricky.
So, are any more of my family sending you questions?
They have not said anything else. It's been rather quiet over there in the live chat. We must have answered everything. But it is 9:18, so I don't want to keep you too long since your family is there with you. But so you're in Vegas this weekend, and then
I am.
You are
this weekend, and then I'm in Staten Island. September 3rd is the signing then. Then Authors
in Columbia.
It's called Authors Invade Columbia. I want to say that. It's Authors Invade Columbia, and it's in Columbia, South Carolina. And that is actually November 11th. And that's all I'm doing this year. But then next year, there are several others that Rebels Hit the Road is in February at the BWI Marriott. Unmask the Romance is in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. Royals in the DMV is in Kent Island, Maryland, it's a beautiful venue, absolutely beautiful venue, and that's in June. There's Authors in the City in New York City, and that's in August, and I'm very excited about that one. I love New York, so I'm really excited about doing that one. And I know there's a Sharon Hamilton one that I'm doing in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania also. I can't remember that date off the top of my head. And then in 2019, I'm going to do a signing in Dublin, Ireland, and I'm very excited about that. There are some readers that I know in and around that area, and I'm really hoping to connect with them. We've been talking through Facebook for a really long time, so it's going to be, and not to mention the fact that Ireland is my dream trip. You know, I'm really looking forward to going to Dublin. So I think I may have to make that one a vacation as well. I might have to add a few more days in there. And this is from a girl who doesn't even have a passport. I don't even bet. I just applied for a passport. I've never had one. But I think I'm very excited to get around and meet readers. I'm very excited to do exactly what I love doing. I'm very excited to do what my husband believed was kind of the thing that I should be doing. So, and I mean, what more can I say? I really feel humbled. I never thought anybody would read my stories, ever. I thought that the love stories that I wrote about, or the trials and triumphs that my characters went through, I honestly thought that I was going to have to beg people to read my novels. But those that have given me such wonderful feedback that, I mean, how can you, if your story touches one person, I mean, really, it's great to hear feedback when people invest themselves in your imaginary friends.
Exactly. I mean, you know, it's got to be when I have I play a couple of characters in a couple of books you know, I say I play. I am a character in a couple of people's books. And, you know, just even recommending, sorry, the little piece of hair is getting on my nerves. Um, it's always wanting to just stick right out. Being able to recommend those books and saying, hey, read this. I'm a character in this book, you know, and then we can discuss the book and talk about what they thought about it. And I can only imagine what it's like to even just have written those words, much less, you know, because for me, I'm like, did you like my character? What do you think? Did I admit you?
As I said, Stuart Reardon will always be my Declan in my mind. Declan is a top New York supermodel, a male supermodel. And he has realized that although he has achieved great wealth and great notoriety, that's not all there is to life. And that's where the story begins. The man is soul searching. And what transpires after that are the influences of the world, pretty much. You know, it's like there's someone who believes that notoriety and money, they are the end all be all. And then there are other people that, even though they are like-minded with him, they haven't achieved the success that he has. And it's all the things that they go through. But to think of this very handsome man who is soul searching, and all of a sudden he sees a woman on the beach that is not what the fashion industry would consider a world beauty, but yet it clicks for him that she is what the real definition of beauty is. You would think that the two of them could just get together and it would be happily ever after, but it doesn't happen like that, because
that way.
Influences come into play, and that is actually where the story begins. It's not where it ends, but that's where it begins, and it's everything that they go through in between to get to where they want to be. That's what fueled this.
That's the fun part.
Yes. So it is very rewarding to have people come at you and say, oh my God, I can't wait to find out what happens, because you know what's going to happen, but sometimes your characters take you in a different direction too when you're writing it. All of a sudden, something will pop up and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that was going to happen. So sometimes it's a surprise to us as well.
Yes. Well, and that always happens. Characters, you know, always surprise you. You think you know where they're going, and you're like, wait a minute.
Well, doesn't life? I mean, life surprises you. Nothing ever comes easy. Not anything worthwhile having. But before it gets too late, I want to thank you for having me, because this is the first one that I've ever done. And you've made it a very easy evening for me. Sometimes an emotional one, but honestly, I hope that people do tap into the emotion of the stories. That's what a good story is about. It evokes emotion. And if you can feel a little bit that the author feels when they write it, then your job as an author is done. You will continue to write the stories as long as people will continue to read them. And I thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about, not only about my writing journey, but about my personal journey as well with people in the writing world, and about my personal love story. So I thank you for allowing me to do that on your show.
Yes. It was lovely to have you. And sorry for all the emotional.
Oh, no, it's okay. Honestly, you were part of that journey. I mean, and I told you this. You can meet a lot of people out there, but you can only connect with genuine hearts if that's what you want to. And that was how I felt when I met you. So I feel very honored and privileged to have found myself on your radar.
Yes. Well, I was talking to Kiki Chatfield earlier today, and she said to give you a shout out before I forget. Here you go. That I was telling her, I said, I have, tonight's the show. Dee Lorenzo is on the show, and she was like, "Oh, I love her." I said, "I do too. I could just snuggle with her."
Well, hey, I'm a good hugger. I like to give hugs and I like to get them too. So, and of course, we all know this. If you've ever met me at a signing, poor Shell Bliss, I sometimes forget that I hug her too much, but but it happened. I mean, it just seemed to happen that way this year. And honestly, I used every one of those hugs that I got, every one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They meant more than people could ever imagine.
Definitely. Yeah. And well, I mean, a hug can make your day. I mean, you could have the world's crappiest day and somebody give you a hug and it just turns it completely around. It's that
it did.
That connection, of I think the heart connection there just really can help make a difference.
It did. It really did.
Well, I will see you again in November because Columbia is only 2 hours from here, and I'm planning on scooting over to the signing that day. And so I'll see you again. I won't be in Vegas, and I won't be in Staten Island, but I'll see you in Columbia.
That's okay. I will see you in Columbia, and I promise I'll have a hug for you.
Yay! Yay! And then, of course, we'll see you again in New York.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. I can't wait. I'm really excited about that signing. And
yay!
Really, especially with it being your last signing, I'm excited about participating.
It's going to be a good one. It's an awesome author list
that I love and admire that are also going to be signing at that one. I'm really excited. I'm excited about all of them, but you know what I mean? There's just some people that you see yourself. It's and I'm sure that other authors will tell you exactly the same thing. You see yourself on the banner with these other names and you're like, is this really happening? It's a pinch me moment. So, and I hope that I always stay humbled enough that I feel that way.
Yes. Yes, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you won't have any issues whatsoever with that.
My dog is actually trying to get under the door because I left everybody here.
Yes, exactly. Well, and it is 9:30, so he's probably like, "Mom, you've gone your allotted time. You're done."
Yes. Yes. To see more pictures of Sawyer, just check my Instagram account because she's always trying to interrupt my typing.
Exactly. Laying on your hand like,
yes.
Hello.
She does. Excuse me. Stop now.
It's my turn. Pet me. Let's play.
She's just like a child, I swear.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. Thank you. And we'll see you again in November. And anytime you want to come on the show, just let me know. We are happy to have you.
Thank you. It was a really nice chat. Thank you for having me. I'm glad that you popped my interview cherry.
There you go. I love popping cherries.
There you go. Thank you.
Your YouTube cherry, your interview cherry. We're all good.
Thank you. I don't know how to disconnect from this, so you have to tell me.
Okay, well, I'll stop the broadcast and then I'll tell you how to do all that. So, thanks everybody. We'll see you again next week, and hope you have a good night.
Toodaloo. Bye.